Chapter 4. The answer is yes. I long for that glorious and beautiful time, the fairest and dearest and best, when the dear little children of every clime shall crowd at his arms and be blessed. The Tuon comes, the Tuon comes. Elijah's shrill little voice was heard far up the mountainside. Kandima and Chaya were winnowing rice where they had spread a big mat in the shade of the durian tree. Both girls looked up. Is it really the Tuon, Chaya? Kandima strained her left eye, but it was now so inflamed and sore that it was hard to see very far. There are two Tuons, Chaya said as she shaded her eyes with her hand. One of them is Artuon. The other one I never saw before. He is taller. Mukit and Elijah are running to meet them. Chaya dropped her winnowing basket and walked around the house to get a better view of the party. Kandima, is that really the Tuon? Mother called from the hut. It has only been 1 moon since he was here. I wonder why he returned so quickly. It really is the Tuon, Mother. The girl climbed the ladder into the house and took up her station at the window where she could watch everything without being seen. There were two Tuons. Kadima could see them very well now. They had stopped in the shade of the coconut tree by the house of Teacher Dawad. There were two carriers. One of them Kandima knew as Sibanel, the Tuon's gardener. The other was a stranger. The new Tuon was tall and not so thin as our Tuon. The villagers gave him a name at once, the Guru, since they were told that he was a teacher from the great school in Singapore. Both the men appeared tired. Dawad had just sent Mukit up the coconut tree to knock down some green nuts. The boga guns were placed against the wall of Dawad's house, and the whole company was watching Mukit scramble up the tree like a monkey. In a few minutes he had kicked off several large green coconuts. He hung onto the stems and fronds at the top of the tree and used his right foot to push off the heavy nuts. That's enough, the Tuon shouted to the small boy. We shall want some coconuts another day. Mukit kicked off 3 more and then slid down the sloping trunk of the tree. Dawad fetched his big chopping knife from the hut. With a heavy stroke he cut off the top of each nut neatly with one blow. This left a little hole about an inch across. The nuts were passed around to the visitors, who seated themselves on the grass and began to drink refreshing draughts of the delicious coconut milk. When the nuts were empty, they were handed back to Dawad, who split them wide open with his knife and fashioned a little shovel of the trough shell for each person. Then they all scooped out the soft meat of the green coconut and ate it with evident relish. By this time, all the villagers knew that 2 white men had come. People were coming from all directions. Everyone was full of curiosity about the visitor. Kadima longed to join her parents and Chaya as they followed the eager crowd to Teacher Dawad's house. But something held her back. She could see and hear everything from her station at the window. This is my brother, said the Tuan, laughing. Doesn't he look like me? Someone ventured to say that he didn't think they looked at all alike. Well, his wife and my wife are sisters. Doesn't that make us brothers? Everyone thought that was a good joke. You should have sent word that you were coming, said Mukit's mother. We would have prepared cakes and curry and giving you a fine welcome. Come, I will help you prepare the meal for the Tuon. It was Kokit's daughter speaking. The two women came down the hill to Kokit's house. Kadima joined them there and lent her best efforts to grating the coconut and washing the vegetables. Kokit's daughter ran to the spring with the rice kettle while Mukit's mother kindled the fire on the flat earthen stove. It was only a short time until the rice was boiling. An hour later, a satisfying meal was set before the visitors. It was dark now. Kadima ventured into the shadows near the door of Dawad's house. There was only one feeble kerosene lamp burning in the house. Finally drawn by the urge to see and hear all that was going on, she crept up the ladder and into the house, crouching down behind blind Kokit, who had been led in by his son-in-law, Gulum. Mukit, who was usually very much in evidence on any social occasion, was nowhere to be seen. He had grieved deeply over his part in finding the king of the centipedes that had caused the death of Gulen's baby. Teacher Dawad had tried to comfort the small boy. I can't forget how Kokit's daughter cried that morning, Mukit would say with sorrow. Kandima saw Gulan and his wife sitting close to the Tuan and guessed the reason for Mukit's absence. And where is Kandima? Tuan had been talking with Teacher Dawad. Will someone bring Kandima? I want to see her. The unhappy little girl was dragged from her place of concealment and pushed toward the Tuan. With a bright smile, he received her and drew her down onto his knee, then continued his conversation with Teacher Dawad. I hope this child's parents have changed their minds about my proposition. Tuan looked down at Kandima. Her eye is no better. Have you discussed the matter with them? Teacher Dawad spoke in a low voice. They are very sorry they refused your invitation. They can see the eye is getting worse every day. I think they will be willing this time. Wait and see. Would you like to go home? Go to my house, little one? He whispered into the little brown ear. There are 7 children there, he confided. 2 little boys and 2 little girls, a big boy and 2 big girls. Yes, there's a baby too. That makes 8 altogether. The little ones are Nancy, Peter, June, and Beanie. They will play with you. They are all expecting you. Kadima wriggled happily. She looked out from under her thatch of tangled black hair at father. He was smiling. So she knew the answer was yes. Thereupon she was swung off into a dream of such magnificence as can scarcely be imagined. The conversation went on and on. Teacher Dawad was relating the sad story of Gulan's baby and the Babylonian. Mukit, who had been hiding, crept around where he could look at the Tuan's face. The story progressed to its mournful climax. He could find nothing in those kind gray eyes but deep sympathy. Mercifully, Teacher Dawad omitted the name of the person who had been successful in the quest for the king of the centipedes, and the Tuan did not inquire. My friends, do not grieve more. The deep, kind voice was husky with emotion. The Tuan looked first at Gulan, then at his weeping wife. See, we are all your friends. Very likely God will give you more little ones, and you will trust them to his mercies rather than to the charms of the Babylonian. That will be a much better way. Both the men were then commended the father for his change of heart and allowing Kandima to accompany the Tuan down to the great city. Very gently they broke the news to him that it would be necessary to send Kandima to Singapore, a great city days away by steamship. This was a terrible trial for the poor men. How can I let her go so far away among strangers? Will she not die of homesickness? It will be as though she was dead and buried out on the mountainside with Gulan's baby. Father held his head in his hands for a long time. Finally, he raised troubled eyes and searched the Tuan's face with desperate eagerness. Will you take her there yourself? He questioned. No, answered the kindly man. But here is my brother, who has two little daughters of his own. He is returning to Singapore in 4 days, and he has promised to care for the child as his own. Father turned his gaze on the Guru and studied his face for a full minute. The kind blue eyes, looking straight into his own, held nothing but great friendliness and understanding. Will you go with these men, Kandima? Her father spoke in a stern and husky voice. For answer, the little girl threw both arms around the Tuan's neck and hid her face on his shoulder. Father held out his hand to the Guru. She may go, he said, and arose at once. Taking Kandima in his arms, he picked his way through the darkness to his own hut. Again Kandima lay awake on her mat, straining her ears to hear what father and mother were saying. I have told the Tuan that she may go. Father's voice sounded weary and confused. I suppose it is best, mother agreed after a long silence. She grows worse every day. What good will she ever be blind? Blind and useless. What man will ever want her for a wife? It is hard to look at her. I can hardly bear to look at her myself. Early next morning, Kadima hurried to the spring. Yes, she was really hard to look at. She gazed into the clear pool with a shudder. The ruined eye was horrible gray mass protruding from the eye socket, so the lid could not be closed. The other eye was red and sore. The black hair was tangled. The face was miserable and sad. Yes, she was repulsive to look at. Yet Tuan had looked at her with the greatest tenderness, and he had held her in his arms all evening. That was why she wanted to go with Tuan. He loved her in spite of her disfigured face, and she loved him back with all her strength, and made doubly strong through suffering. I am going with the Tuan. Kandima came upon Mukit, just going down to the spring to fetch water for his mother. I will go tomorrow. It is very possible I shall stay a long time if I like it. I may even become one of his children. Mukit looked defeated. He mumbled something about wishing he had a sore eye so he could go down to the Tuan's house. Kadima scarcely heard him. Elijah, I'm going to go to the Tuan's house. Mukit's little cousin had come around the corner of the hut. Kadima could not keep from telling the good news to everyone. I will see his house and all his children. She swept her hand across the valley with a gesture that signified a great multitude of children. It will be useful for me to see all those things, she meditated. I shall probably stay with the Tuan after this. Chaya, do you think I might get a ride on one of those going things like buffalo carts without any animal to pull them? I've heard father say there are many of them in the city. Again, she would ask, Chaya, do you know there is a great valley of water beyond our mountain? It is like a great plain. I've heard Father tell about it. Kadima did not mention her need of medical attention as one of her reasons for going with the Tuan. Indeed, it did not seem so important now. Yet her eye was rapidly growing worse. She sometimes wondered how many more days she would be able to look upon the green mountain and the loved faces of her family and friends. That evening the whole village gathered at Teacher Dewad's house to sing. The night was filled with sweet melody as the soft voices rang out in the clear mountain air. I would rather hear these people sing than to hear the angels, smiled Tuan at Dawad. Why, Tuan? Dawad replied in surprise. It should be a great privilege to hear angels sing. Tuan nodded. It would be, of course, but no angel can ever know the darkness and suffering out of which these songs have grown in the hearts of these people. That makes them sweeter to me than any other music. When the villagers scattered to their homes, they kept on singing, and up from a score of tiny brown huts were wafted the sweet tones of the evening hymn. Tears came to Kadima's eye. She was leaving tomorrow. Would she ever bear the songs of the village again? She crept into her mosquito curtain and talked softly into the darkness with that great friend of children. Then, hugging her wooden dolly close, she drifted into dreamless sleep.